Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here in the Hendrickson Library at the Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization at ITR World Headquarters in Central Iowa. You've got John Hendrickson, myself here for another episode of the Gold Standard in Iowa Conservative Entertainment. John, fired up, ready to go, lots of notes, cup of coffee. Do you have it today?
I do, yes.
Okay, good, because you're going to have to carry us today.
Yeah,
I told you that when we were, before we went on air here, that you were going to have to lead the charge. We do have a lot to cover today. I have one announcement, though, before we get started, is we have announced invitations are out, or you might get one in the mail for most of our listeners. At least I hope you are. If you don't get one, that means you're not on the list. But the annual ITR Tax Day Luncheon is now coming up on April 1st, and that will be at the Hilton Des Moines downtown. It's a lunch. We are hosting this year again Governor Kim Reynolds, and really excited about that. It's always good to hear from the governor, especially about tax policy, but we're really looking forward to that. So details are on the ITR website. They are also, check your email inbox, and if not, then reach out to us and but you got to make sure you get RSVP'd for that. Or you may not get lunch, which is probably the reason a lot of people are coming. It's a good meal.
It is, yes, absolutely.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, by way of housekeeping, John, you got trivia for us?
I do, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go.
And the last question we had actually had I think, set a record for responses.
Oh, wow.
And
which
so
is what, 3? What is the record?
I think we had 4 this time.
Okay.
And so the question was, who was the only individual to serve as both president and as a justice on the Supreme Court, in fact, Chief Justice, and the answer was President William Howard Taft.
That's correct. I knew that one.
Then, yes, yep. And then President Harding appointed him Chief Justice.
Yeah.
And so the first person that got it was was Chris Ingstad downstairs, and then my mom actually got it.
Yep, Ma Hendrickson.
Yep.
Emailed in.
Yep, she emailed in, and then Nate Risto, the president of Iowa Taxpayers.
Great. He's I think a first-time trivia answerer.
Yeah, yep. And so he had sent me an email the other day saying it was Taft, and so I guess that was 3 people that responded in the affirmative, and also Dan. Had said, so I guess that's 4.
I think it should show you, John, that if you ask a trivia question that's a little less arcane, that people will answer it.
Yes, and I think this one's...
and mind you, that we actually had one that took place in the 20th century.
Yes, yeah.
So that's also, we got that going for us, too.
You know, this morning I was getting a cup of coffee, and the person that was ringing me up said, you remind me of an old newspaper reporter.
Yeah?
And I said, well, thank you. That's a compliment. And they asked me what I did, and I told them, and I said, well, I also, teach classes on this side. And they said, well, what do you teach? And I said, well, I like to study the Depression, New Deal. And they said, well, that fits you. So,
well, our listeners may not know that you actually did newspaper work.
Yes,
at one point.
Yeah,
so that's not that far off.
Yeah. They said I was old-fashioned, so that
right.
But the question this week is also in the 20th century, and it should be fairly easy, but also has to do with the Supreme Court, so we're sticking with this same theme here. But what was the nickname that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave to the justices that struck down New Deal laws? We're looking for the nickname. He called them a group. Okay,
I don't know the answer to this. I'm sure I've heard it before, and I like that the 20th century questions all still happen before, about the late 1930s.
Yes,
that's the end of history in John Hendrickson's world. But well, look, we're within 100 years of present day now, probably, right?
Yep.
So, okay.
Yep.
I don't say poke fun, but you often bring up a lot of notes, and you have articles and notes.
Yeah.
And today's trivia question is written on today's episode of the Garfield calendar.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, I saw that, and
I'm still a fan of Garfield.
That's fantastic, John.
Yeah.
That made my day. So just whatever you need to jot notes on, it's just good stuff. All right. You've got a new article out. I want to cover that today. and or will be out soon, one way or the other.
Yes, yeah.
But I want to check in on the governor's race, a couple of things that are going on here, and that sometimes intersects with what's going on in the legislature and policy right now. But you were the first to bring it to my attention, and then I think it's been reported in the media, is that Randy Feenstra has announced that he's going up with a major statewide TV ad buy. And this is, I don't know if I just said the 7 figures. I mean, it's in the millions. And that we talked about this before. Look, Randy Feenstra has a huge cash advantage in the Republican primary. And this is where it plays out. He will be able to go up on TV earlier. Some of the Republican candidates won't be on TV at all. He'll be able to go up earlier, bigger, and in presumably all markets. I don't know whether the ad buy will include Rochester, Minnesota, and Quincy, Illinois, but those do actually penetrate. But presumably this is a big, major statewide TV ad buy. And so this is where it gets real. And this is where that part of that structural advantage that we've talked about that Congressman Feenstra has is played out here. He's going to be talking to a much broader group of Iowans than the rest of the candidates are. And it is what it is, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you see some of what the ad was apparently supposed to be about? Did you read that?
No, I did not, no.
So apparently it is talking about at one of the joint sessions of Congress where Democrats refuse to stand for something. He's playing off of the height thing, which we've sort of talked about before. Well, he'll stand tall. Get it? Yeah. And then kind of tying Rob Sand to that. And I think it's an immigration theme, which, we've talked about this before, is that candidates in the past have shied away from immigration, both sides of the aisle. They don't want to talk about it. I think it is an issue this time around. Is it not? Has this now come into where mainstream, conventional, statewide Republicans in a general election are talking about immigration now?
I think so, and I think immigration's been an issue since 2016, and I think it may not be on for some candidates, but certainly it's on the minds of a lot of voters.
Yeah.
And so to raise this issue is probably something we're going to see from the candidates. And but no, I think it's very important to people.
Yeah, and it is an issue where I think that it's absolutely an issue in a Republican primary, which is what this is about. Even though there's some taking shots at the presumptive Democrat nominee Rob Sand, that. Like this is on the minds of voters. It's going to be on in the general election too. And I think it's going to be another tough issue for Rob Sand to tackle as he tries to stake out at least what would conventionally be thought of as middle ground. I don't know whether it really is. That's an issue that will put him at odds with his base if he tries to take much of a strong an immigration stand.
Absolutely,
so
with the controversy surrounding ICE and everything.
And so where Rob Sand falls in that, I think, remains to be seen. Yeah, I don't recall where he's had to take a strong stand one way or the other, specifically on immigration enforcement. But it's probably a good issue, I think, for Feenstra to tackle, and I'm sure it's poll tested that's an issue. So. And back to the idea of Democrats sitting down in a joint session. I mean, that's where the base of the party's at. They don't want immigration's customs enforcement, ICE. They don't want them active anywhere, and they don't want law enforcement cooperating with them. They have opposed sanctuary city laws, banning those in Iowa in the past, and they're on the opposite side of public opinion on this issue, clearly, and so that's good.
And that was shocking during the State of the Union when they were refusing to stand for a couple different issues.
Right.
I mean, that were just what we would consider common sense.
Yeah, and I don't get that either, because it doesn't cost you anything, and especially when it's just a general. Well, what's your objection here other than that you don't like Donald Trump?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that. In fact, I don't know if you saw, we didn't talk about this, but Senator John Fetterman had a very strong statement against that. He's like, yeah, they've got it all. Really calling out his own party directly, saying, stand up. This is great. This is good. So why wouldn't we? And those are the voices that I think we need more of. I mentioned that Randy Feenstra certainly has a cash advantage in the Republican primary, but that is not to say that he has one in the general election. That remains to be seen, because clearly State Auditor Rob Sand has raised, I think, multiples of what anybody else, probably multiples of the entire Republican field at this point. But so he continues to have what would look to be a free pass, at least in the primary, and gets to run a campaign. Look, there are some criticisms on the right, but at least up until this TV ad, there's not really he's not running against anybody. He just gets to talk about whatever he wants to talk about, which is certainly a big benefit in a political campaign. But I saw it was a reel that I showed this to you as well, John, that Rob Sand put out, and I think it was actually promoting it on his Facebook.
They're literally going to pass a bill that effectively says, we know you all voted, and we know you put in new leadership. We know you put in a guy who said, hey, we should fairly fund public schools. We know you put in a guy who said, hey, we're thinking that maybe we shouldn't have a school vouchers program that has no accountability in it. We know you voted for a guy who said, hey, maybe we shouldn't double the pay of Odyssey, the private company that runs that school vouchers program. We know you did all those things, but we just don't care because we want to look out for special interests and insiders.
If I'm wrong, correct me, listeners, but it sure seemed like he was talking about the budget continuation bill that is being discussed in the Iowa Senate right now, which is one of the ITR agenda items. It was your perspective that that's what he was talking about as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we talked about this bill last week where it just says if you get to the end of the fiscal year and there has not been a state budget passed, that the state budget will continue status quo. Understand that some people don't like this bill for various reasons. Conservatives that are hesitant about it, whatever. Okay. I don't want to go back into the merits of that bill necessarily, but Rob Sand had, it was a speech that he was giving somewhere, and presumably to base Democrats, that was really calling that out. And his point was that he's had enough, and that if he gets elected, that he should have the right to weigh in on the state budget and ESA accountability were the two main issues, right? If Rob Sand doesn't like that piece of policy, fine. Like that, I take no position on it. I think it's a good thing to do. But he's saying right there, in plain words, that he should have the right to shut down government over the budget, specifically public school funding, and at least accountability in ESAs and school choice. Is that what he's saying?
Absolutely.
If he doesn't like it and thinks that whatever, but it really almost expressly saying that he intends to be able to use the leverage of a threatened shutdown to get what he wants. Right?
That's what the video was.
So we've got that for you. You can listen to it, and you can for yourself if that's what he's saying. But to that bill, I mean, there's a quote from Senator Busolo that says that this provides certainty against government shutdowns. So Rob Sand wants to be able to threaten shutdowns. I mean, saying that out loud. We don't want Iowa to work like Washington, D.C., but apparently Rob Sand wants to be able to threaten that. So that's one problem with that bill. And the other one here, John, is, and again, it's not an issue that we've talked a lot about, but the educational savings accounts. So I went to a celebration dinner this week for the Iowa Association, or the Iowa ACE folks that celebrating 20 years of school choice in Iowa. And this is now directly under threat by Rob Sand. He says in this video, its accountability of the school choice, but I believe he said in the past he would support repealing the entire ESA program. But what does that even mean? When we talk about it, what does, in his mind, when he talks about accountability and auditing the ESA program, what are we talking about?
Well, he's basically saying that the ESA program is it's in a sense anarchy, is what he's saying, and basically there is no oversight, and that and in fact he's even said that private school administrators and principals are enjoying European vacations, and which there has, as far as I know, there hasn't been any evidence of corruption or of of any wrongdoing so far. And I mean, so he's been throwing this stuff out, but there's been nothing yet that I know of, anyways. And so, if I understand right, there are oversight within that system. And we do know from other states that, for example, like Arizona, which has had an ESA program longer than us, I mean, there are instances where there is fraud, but I hate to say it, but we live in a fallen world, and there's probably there's not too many government areas where you're not going to see some element of corruption.
I know I took a break, went and checked the cameras, and threw you off, John.
Yeah.
But just this week, we saw the Iowa City schools, $10 million misallocation of funds.
Yes.
That they weren't doing it right. Silent on that. But we got to go in and audit the books of private institutions. What is it that you want to find in that audit? I really, if my kids in my private school, if that school is spending money inappropriately, we're going to take care of it.
That's right.
Me, as the one that pays the tuition, has a far bigger stake in making sure that those dollars are spent wisely, much more so than Rob Sand.
And you're going to know. I mean, the parents are going to know the outcome of the quality of education that the
you
kids
think
are receiving.
Parents don't know? Parents are paying attention in these private schools, because when you're paying, you're invested.
Yes, yeah.
And there is such a level of communication, and to say that every dollar is spent absolutely appropriately, I have no idea. But I tell you, I have a great deal of confidence in the school's administration. I look, what is it that you're looking for? Because all you're doing is taking the investment and shifting it over into a different school that is educating kids with better outcomes at a cheaper rate, and yet we still got to audit that. What presumably is we're going to go into every family and make sure that every family deserves to have that ESA, even though it's universal, or what we're going to dig in and make sure that, you shouldn't have bought that piece of equipment versus something else. Give me a break. Pull the plank out of your own eye first, because our public schools aren't doing what they need to do with the dollars before we go on this crusade of auditing private institutions. Give me a break.
That's right. And this is, I think what this all boils down to is more of just demonizing the issue.
Correct.
And that's what it is. And
this is because you have polling data that shows that a good chunk of independent voters, look, we know where base Democrats are at on the issue, that it resonates with them, and you think you can go peel them off and win an election off of that. I don't know whether it is or not, but I will tell you this. You have seen nothing. If there is a legitimate effort, if Rob Sand somehow wins and somehow comes to the legislature in January of 2027 asking for a significant pullback of the ESA program, you haven't seen anything yet. They will flood that building.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you now. It'll be big. And you want to fire up conservatives again? Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think too, a lesson for Iowans is just look at what happened in Virginia. when you had a supposedly centrist running for governor, and now look at what is happening.
Yep.
And that agenda that's being pushed there is anything but centrist.
Yep.
So,
well, we're going to have a lot to say about that because the stakes are clearly high. Anytime you have an election, the stakes are high. But this is a collision of worldviews. Whatever Republican services out of the primary and presumptive nominee Rob Sand, they can sanitize these messages for a general election all they want. This is a collision of diametrically opposed worldviews. And I don't say that because I like that that's the way it is, but the people that are bringing you Rob Sand and Republican-based primary voters have very different views of government.
yes.
May or may not be healthy, but I mean, we need to have it out, and we need to know what these things. If you want to run around the state talking about accountability for ESAs and private schools, okay, but tell me what that means.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to use that issue to get elected governor, tell me what it is you want to go digging around for. And it's not because the school administrator or where they decided to go on vacation. Get out with that kind of crap. That has nothing to do with real public policy.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
For somebody that holds himself out as being so smart and so much better, do better than that kind of nonsense. That's what I have to say about that. Okay. All right. So you have an article that is or will soon be up about the Iowa Parents Back in Charge. The title of the piece has to do with returning education to the state's waiver. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me what this is about.
Yeah. So in January, the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, came to Iowa and announced that Iowa was the first state to be accepted into what's called the Returning Education to States program, which basically allows Iowa to have flexibility in using federal education dollars as they see best. And so this would be what we call allowing those dollars to be given to Iowa in the form of a block grant, and so they would have greater flexibility. And so, which means there's less strings attached, and so less federal regulations that, because what it boils down to, and this is what Governor Reynolds has said, is that basically Iowa schools know how to best run their schools better than what the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And what we've seen for decades is that, whether it's No Child Left Behind, all this regulatory policy with education is that it hasn't really helped education. And so what this does is allow greater flexibility for the states. And so it's pretty exciting for Iowa being the first state to have this flexibility. And this also fits into what we've already done in terms of state policy. And so that means we've expanded parental choice, school choice policies here in Iowa. So that means the ESA program, Education Savings Accounts. We've expanded charter schools, and we've seen this year new charter schools taking place and also new ones in the process. Open enrollment, barriers to open enrollment have been taken down. And so, in fact, I think we've even seen more people, more students take advantage of open enrollment than we have, I think, with ESAs. I think we're seeing that in definitely in some districts. And all this is where it boils down to is that when it comes to education at the state and the local level, that's where the teachers, the parents, the administrators, they know how to run this better than what the Department of Ed in Washington, D.C. And so what, Republicans for a long time have wanted to abolish the Department of Education. And what Reagan famously said, there's the next thing to permanent life on earth is a government program.
Right. I think this is a key point here, John. Why and I want you to maybe restate it or talk about it some more. Why is it that education policy should be led by states, not the federal government?
Yeah, the main point is that one is it's constitutional for the states to do it. There's nothing in the Constitution under the powers of Congress under Article 1, Section 8 that says that Congress should even be involved in this. It's a state issue under the 10th Amendment.
The
And
presumption
yes.
is everything is a state issue unless
Yep.
specifically enumerated,
Yes, yeah,
right?
yeah. And so the Department of Education is technically an expansion of government that I would say is unconstitutional. Setting that aside, and the other thing is you have ample evidence, decades of policy being dictated from Congress. Whether it's, I think we had Goals 2000, you had No Child Left Behind, you had all these different federal legislation that created regulations and rules and standards, and the quality of education has gone down, but yet we continue to dump tons and tons of money into education. So the question is, we're spending all this money on education, but yet why are the metrics going down? Why is the quality going down?
So you also talked about the things we've done on education reform, ESAs, charters, open enrollment. Like, how does this fit into that? How does this federal waiver allow? Are there opportunities to leverage this? How does that work together?
Yeah, and so what this does is it may not. There is some, I think, elements to this waiver that would support some of the school choice policies that Iowa has done, but basically what this does is it basically allows Iowa to take that federal money to spend that as they see fit. So, for example, to look at student achievement gaps and how to target those resources to what what districts think would be the best way to handle those, not necessarily what the Department of Ed would say. And so that's what the governor is recommending, is that instead of having Linda McMahon or the bureaucrats say, Iowa really should be spending this amount of money on this program or this, what they're doing, what the Trump administration is doing is let states figure that out.
Yeah.
And so what the governor then is doing is and she's allowing parents to have a greater say.
Yeah.
Which is actually what comes down to the heart of education, is who should be in control of education is the parents. And so allowing parents to have that choice of whether they want to be in a public school or go to a home school or a private school, they have that choice now because of the ESA, because of open enrollment. They don't have to be trapped in a district. Before there was barriers. There's charter school options that are available, and the charter schools kind of have a specialized education format. And so there's all this opportunities that are there now. And I think with the federal dollars, it just, especially when it probably majority of it applies to the public schools, but it allows that flexibility. And so it gives us at least, because I think Iowans know how to run Iowa schools better than Washington D.C. That's what it boils down to.
Right, and we talk about Iowans know better. I think we can tailor it better to what's going on in Iowa. Iowans and their elected representatives here, it's closer to the actual delivery of that service, which is, I think, I've made the point many times before, if I don't like something that comes out of the Department of Education, that's really hard for me as an individual citizen to deal with. But here in Iowa, I can go talk to my state legislator pretty much anytime I want. I mean, may not be busy at a given time, but I can walk up to the front door of the Iowa House, or I can go to a local school board meeting and talk to my school board. That's where those decisions about education should be taking place, and parent groups and all those other things, not inside the cathedrals of bureaucracy in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And we've noticed, and I think even when you were in the legislature, we've seen the Iowa legislature, education funding is so rigid. It's in all these buckets. They've started loosening those strings up even at the state level, and so districts can it's they still have the buckets, but it's becoming a little more loose, I think, where they can be a little more flexible, and that's a good thing because each district is so different.
Yeah.
And so the superintendents, the teachers, they know best rather than even the Department of Ed at the state level, and so that's why the in a sense that localized, where the parents, the teachers, they know what's best, how to run that classroom, not some bureaucrat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I mean, what's the net of it then? I mean, just to kind of summarize, what does this mean for students and parents in Iowa?
This is giving more freedom to parents and students, and it's giving more opportunity, and it's allowing greater autonomy for the state. It's basically going back to what education should be, and it's a less of a command control type system, and that's a good thing. Very good.
Well, thank you, John. Anything else for the good of the order?
No. I just think it's it's just a step in the right direction of having that, kind of loosening the federal bureaucracy.
Yep. Well, good. Well, you can find that article at itrfoundation.org. It's there. Check it out. And I think this is a meaningful piece of trying to shift power back to the states, which is something that conservatives have long stood for.
Yes, yeah. And this was a policy that started with Nixon with block grants and Reagan, and now President Trump is doing this. So
that's right. Well, good. Well, that's all we got for today, John. Listeners, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to check out the ITR Tax Day Luncheon coming up on April 1. Don't forget to check out John's article at itrfoundation.org. And don't forget to like and subscribe, share the episode with your friends. It helps us get the message out. And with all that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.